Welcome everybody to our panel, Cognitive Apprenticeship for Undergraduates, the Problem of Design. My name is Matt Schumann. I am in the History Department at the Bowling Green State University Department of History. And these are three of my recent students. And we're going to be presenting to you precisely on this problem, whether I have in fact achieved a cognitive apprenticeship with them. So the inspiration comes from a quote from Edmund Burke. Teaching which approaches most nearly to the method of investigation tends to set the learner in the track of invention and to direct them into those paths in which the instructor has made their own discoveries. In other words, as I have made my own discoveries, can I lead my students into the same track, even as they are seeking different discoveries of their own? So in a SOTL sense, our question is how we bring this kind of teaching to students and what level is appropriate for doing so. There is some literature on this. It's probably indirect, but we see Burke's legacy in Wilhelm von Humboldt's concept of Bildung, or self-directed learning, from Jean Piaget's cognitive stages, from Lev Vygotsky's situated cognition and proximal development, from Bandura's social learning and social cognition, and from the pioneers of constructivist pedagogy who published several articles, especially starting in 1989. Nancy Hodges in 2017 also distinguished between advising and mentoring, another distinction that I believe is actually quite important if we're talking about cognitive apprenticeship. So from the literature, we do see from Hodges, there is a Burke-like mentoring and cognitive apprenticeship pedagogy at the graduate level. We're asking really how far down the ladder can we go? What would Piaget think, for example? Of course, Piaget is more really pedagogy, right? Talking about children's cognitive development. But could we reach down from the graduate to the undergraduate stage of development, and how would we go about doing that? Specifically, can we take inspiration from Wiggins and McTighe, just understanding by design? Could we use some kind of differentiation or student-centered learning, as Tomlinson and McNair suggest? Can we go straight from just design, as Badley does? Can we design our way to a cognitive apprenticeship that really works for undergraduates? There are some cautions that we have to be aware of. Undergraduate students in general are less clearly focused on their studies and on their future trajectory than graduate students are. Undergraduate courses, of course, are much larger, sometimes by orders of magnitude, and undergraduate curricula, especially in the humanities, liberal arts, even social sciences, are vulnerable to fragmentary learning and compartmentalization. It's just not 100% clear how one class relates to another. So that is something we need to be aware of in a cognitive apprenticeship kind of model. So designing backwards, loosely from Piaget, I think it's appropriate to simply ask, can curricula in these fields stack vertically, kind of like engineering does, right? There are flowcharts, right? Take one course before another. Can we do that in the liberal arts? Can cognitive apprenticeship operate effectively in classes that are, if not small, like a graduate seminar, then at least small enough? And especially following Tomlinson and McNair, can we offer diffuse outcomes for students, even with only one person doing the modeling, instruction, and ultimately the apprenticeship? So this is our pilot course, History 3797. This is our historiography course right in the middle of the history major at Bowling Green. Last semester's edition of this course built on an award-winning in-person course, a highly successful COVID transition, and a very highly rated online remote course. So it's something that I'm willing to say it happened to work well, but if we're really looking into cognitive apprenticeship, then we really need to think about how did this course work and does it actually achieve cognitive apprenticeship? So there are some basics. I wanted to have a method that explains what students will do before they do it, models what students will do before they do it. So yes, students actually do get to see my work in the process of this course. Can I replicate my methods for what I'm doing as I'm giving directions for the students? And can I repeat and scaffold tasks for the students so they actually grow in confidence with what they're doing? So maybe phrased a little differently, can we get students to practice academic research, practice summary and synthesis, practice self-reflection, practice peer presentation, practice peer review, and come out of the course after a semester with a proposal for them to do more on their own? So basically completing the apprenticeship, can they propose to do something independently? More specifics, I do open my process, right? I think and I share my thinking, I share my goals as I go. So I really do have this sense of, yes, properly apprenticeship. I represent the process by intermediate steps so that students are focused not on, let's say, December for a fall course or April or May for a spring course, but they're actually thinking on a timeline of a couple of semesters or even years for the projects that they have in mind. Can I follow King's advice and actually really get on the side of students and guide there, and really be that guide on the side rather than just a sort of a leader at the front? And can I be truly out to the side of them, meaning in a certain sense, can I get out of their way as they self-select, as they self-motivate, as they do their own exploration, not subject to the subject area specialization that I have? More specifically, I want to open with basic guides for history and academic writing. So I insist that they understand at least Wilhelm von Humboldt's treatise on the historian's task. And the Rutgers website for years and years and years has had a lovely guide to undergraduate history writing. And I let my students know right off that this is basically what professional historians do. We just have more practice at it. We then enter into the early part of the semester. I work on one of my projects. They start gathering data for their projects. So I'm modeling my work right alongside them. I demonstrate engagement with fellow scholars in my field, just at the same moment that I'm teaching on interpretation and having students stake out their own intellectual turf. And as we get to the end of the semester, we differentiate audiences. Mine, of course, is in academia, both as a historian and, of course, in this context, doing ISSOTL. But for my students, as we'll see momentarily, they're looking at different audiences. And can I, as somebody leading cognitive apprenticeship, can I let them just stake out their own intellectual territory and stake out their own audiences for who they want to present to? Finally, let me make sure that this is well understood in plain English. I offer a basic guide for historical theory, another for academic writing. I teach and research alongside students. I model, and then students present and peer review and self-reflect. I teach interpretation and I research alongside students on secondary sources. I model again, students present again, and then they peer review and self-reflect once again. And as we get into the audience unit, once again, I teach about audience, I model engagement with, in my case, the academic audience. Students reflect, they sum up, they propose to take their projects further. And as you'll see from V3 today, this is a step for all three of them in taking their respective projects further. So in sum, cognitive apprenticeship, I believe, can work for undergraduate teaching, but under specific conditions. Designing to guide learners into their teachers' avenues of discovery, using skill-based modeling and learning that affords diffuse content instead of focused content, posting Badley's strong center beyond the end of the semester, and stacking courses in such a way that students can really see a vertical alignment or a long-term continuity to what they're doing. Some of this I can say, well, historiography looks great, but can we even go further? Are there other courses that we might explore doing this for? The real proof of this is with the students. So I will simply call on them by name and let them introduce themselves. And then we will get into some questions. So this is Cameron Rice, Emma Brown, and Chloe Kozel. And I will stop my sharing and let them introduce themselves.
All right. Hi, my name is Cameron Rice. I'm a senior at BGSU, And my project looked into the Treaty of Upper Sandusky of 1843 and looked more into the ability to add that event into the Ohio Learning Standards with the Ohio Department of Education.
Hello, my name is Emma Brown. I'm a junior at Bowling Green State University. My project looked at housewives from the 1950s into the present day, looking at how their role has changed as well as how society's view of them has changed over time.
Hi, my name is Chloe Kozel. I'm a sophomore at BGSU, and for my historiography project, I looked into mail art and diplomacy between the US and Argentina during the Argentine Dirty War.
Thank you to all three of you for being here. I'm wondering for all three of you as well, as we've presented some really diverse projects that all three of you are continuing. Can you share with our audience what skills and tools distinguished your research on your projects? Maybe Emma can tackle this one first.
Yeah, I think the coolest, most unique tool that I was able to use was interviews with women in my area. There's not a ton of research out there on stay-at-home moms and from their own perspective. So I put out social media and I used Facebook to get women to let me interview them, and using social media as a tool was pretty cool.
Thank you. And how about you?
So my project obviously dealt more with education. So I got to look at the Ohio Learning Standards and see what we could do to edit those.
Chloe, how about for yours?
So for my project, I worked with another university that's in Ohio, Oberlin College, and I had a private virtual docent tour where I got to explore with the other people at the archives and be able to do my own independent research. And that coordination with the archives throughout the semester was really useful for my research.
Okay, another question for all three of you. What sort of opportunities came from being able to choose your own research topic and pursuing it as you did? Cam, you want to lead us off?
Sure. So the opportunities that I saw come from this project in this class more dealt with my education field again, in the way that I am now able to, in my student teaching placement, use the methods that we used in this class with my students and help them learn better.
Thank you. Emma, how about for you?
Since starting the project, after all the interviews I did, I felt that I couldn't just delete them. So I worked with BGSU libraries to create a collection of the interviews, and it's still in the process of being finalized. And along with that, I've used it on my CV to get a job as an undergraduate researcher on a documentary and work as a microfilmer in the archives at this university as well.
Thanks. Chloe, how about for you?
Yeah, so for this project, I took my research to an undergraduate symposium at my university, and I also took time over the summer to research again and visit the Oberlin archives in person, which was really wonderful. And over the summer and this current semester, I've been working with one of the professors that I had also asked some questions about for my research. So just getting as a sophomore now, but as a freshman then, this class really helped me get to learn more about the history department at BGSU and get to know the faculty there and be able to expand my knowledge of how the university worked and who I could use as resources.
Thank you. All right, so we're now into a segment where each of you gets one question, gets to focus on it a little bit. So for Cam, how did the structure of this course help you to learn, well, really anything, compared to other or prior educational experiences?
Yeah, so in my earlier response, I mentioned open inquiry, and this is something that I felt really helped me learn more in this class that we don't see in other classes. As educators and people in the education field, we know that students learn best when they are actually interested in what they're going to be learning. So the opportunity to look at something that was interesting to me, Ohio history, really helped me learn and be able to learn more about the research process as well.
Fantastic. All right, for Chloe, how has the course prepared you for things that have come up since last spring when you took the course?
Well, like I had said earlier, the course allowed me to present my research at the symposium at my university. So that really came from how the course was structured, where we had talked about peer review and presentation and getting feedback from my fellow classmates. I basically, for a third presentation or proposal, I took my research and essentially just I recorded my presentation and submitted it to the symposium, and it got in. So the course really helped me understand how academics present. And so I was able to take my research and to a smaller venue, but still nonetheless be able to present. And that was really empowering, especially as a student that is very introverted, being able to feel empowered after the first, second, and third presentations to really present my research. So that was really wonderful. I think that was just an awesome opportunity.
All right, thank you. Finally, for Emma, how did cognitive apprenticeship and modeling adjust the trajectory of your research?
One of the things I find hardest when working on a big research project, a semester-long project, is knowing if I'm on the right track, if I'm taking it at the right pace, balancing this class with other classes. So it was really, really beneficial to have Dr. Schumann, at the same time doing his project and be able to compare what I was doing on mine to how far along he was on his. If we did a weekend research and he had gotten 12 sources and I had only gotten 6, I was like, okay, maybe I need to bulk up a little bit. Or if he had gotten 4, but I had gotten like 14, I was like, okay, like next week, let's take it easy. You've done a little more than you need to. So it was really helpful to see it modeled and know if I was taking the right path, or if he would give a tip and I was like, oh, that's a great research tip, I'm going to try that. And it would, take me even further.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you, all three of you, for your responses. This is being recorded in an evening, so thank you for your responses this evening. One last question for all three of you. In your opinion, could or should undergraduate curricula incorporate what we're calling interest-based research projects in a series of courses? Okay, so for those who are listening at home, those are 3 rather enthusiastic thumbs up. And what we'd like to emphasize there, if we're talking about a series of courses, this is the vertical integration that the history department at Bowling Green is beginning to try independently of our historiography course. So good on our department. But we would also like to really think of this presentation, and especially the students, as really representing the interests somewhat of creative faculty, but much more actually of this cohort of students who are coming through universities now, who would like to see vertical integration, who would like to see cognitive apprenticeship, who would like to see their professors just as people modeling their own work. So thank you for tuning in to our presentation. We hope you got something out of it. And we look forward to any questions that you may have.